right, I'm going to call the meeting to order, starting with roll call. Eric? Here. Ann?
Here.
Jeannie?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Stacy?
Here.
Khadijah? Here. Lasard? Here. Excellent, the gang is all here. Notice of the meeting?
The meeting was properly noticed.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anybody would please join me and stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Starting off tonight with a spotlight on learning, we have folks here from Pewaukee Lake Elementary.
Good evening. Thanks for having us back again. Tonight we're going to highlight our physical education program at PLE. So I brought Sierra Gill and Michelle Stanky here tonight to talk to you about how they make PE friendly for the early childhood group that we teach in our building. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. It's nice to be here. When Amanda asked us to present
You should probably introduce yourself.
oh, I'm sorry. My name is Michelle Steinke. I'm one of the PE teachers at PLE.
I'm Sierra Gill. I'm the other PE teacher.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry. So we were asked to present and kind of how we got to where we're at and the things that we do. And when we transitioned from a K2 to a K2 building and seeing the kids 3 times a week for 30 minutes, we really wanted to kind of revamp how we presented PE to kids and the experiences that they got. So we got a little creative and still meeting all the national standards and the state standards. I think we're providing a pretty unique experience for our kiddos, and they get a lot of different experience. They got different ways of learning sports. We don't necessarily call it go by sport anymore. We're introducing them to a lot of different things.
All right, so when we thought about our curriculum and how we could change it and be creative with all of the tools and resources that we have, there's 3 main flags that we kind of looked at. So we really want to spark the children's interest, right? We have them at the K2 level, so we might be their first experience with some of these different physical activities, and we want them to enjoy it for their whole life. So how can we provide them with lots of different experiences to be able to connect to at least 1 or 2 things that they kind of carry through? The second flag up there is meeting them at their level, right? So all kids come in at different levels as far as what kind of activity they get outside of school versus what they get in school, right? And we want to meet them at all of those different levels, and we want them to make them feel comfortable at whatever level they're at. And then the third flag up there, allow for choice and reflection. So we allow our students to kind of give us the feedback on the different activities that they enjoy and how we can improve it to, of course, get to that reflection piece as well.
So at the beginning of each school year, when Sierra and I start to kind of lay out the year and how we want things to flow, we kind of have these 3 pillars: teamwork and cooperation, skill work and centers, and fitness and nutrition. And those keep rotating and cycling around, and we come back to them often. And by following those 3 pillars in our prepping and planning, it just introduces students to as many different skills and activities as we possibly can. Of course, going through that, we run into a few roadblocks and that we have to consider as we go. The number of students that we see, right? We always get 2 classes at a time, so 40 to 50 kids each class. Just our fast-moving schedule, 1 class in, 1 class out, so we're prepping for that as we prepare our activities. And then just different technology things. How many iPads do we have? What's working, what's not? So all of those things we also consider when we're planning and the types of activities that we're planning for when we're working around those 3 pillars.
So speaking of those 3 pillars, there's a main focus that we like to look at when we think about those and we're planning for the year. When it comes to skill work and centers, this is probably our biggest pillar when we look at the year as a whole. We visit these things a lot. So For example, focusing on a specific skill, whether that be striking or throwing and catching, or foot skills is what we call it. We take that skill, we have a full week of just really breaking it down and meeting the kids at whatever level they're at, taking that skill then to what we call centers, and allowing kids to choose different spots to work on that skill, and then finally finishing off with some games that incorporate all the different levels and all the different skills that we talked about for that specific one. And then we have teamwork and cooperation. We really like to, for lack of better words, force kiddos into situations where they have to use some conflict resolution or come up with some strategies, so they can figure things out together. We don't always give them the answer. We really like to think about, or have them think about what they're doing and how they can work together to solve a problem, because we all know that that carries in many different aspects of life. Fitness and nutrition is also another big pillar for us. We focus on the 5 components of fitness. So we start it right with our kindergartners, and it's something they do at Horizon, all the way up to ASA and through the high school. So we get it right away in their brains, ready to go.
So these next couple slides are a few pictures or slides that we use with the students when they come to PE. So this would be some examples of skill work and centers. If you look at the top right where we have the iPad, every time we do centers, we tend to have a written instruction sheet, but we also try to have an iPad there that has a visual for kids to watch so they can see what it should look like and sound like when they're there. Down on the bottom right, you can see that would have been something that was projected up on the wall with what should be happening at each center. And that color coding for us is really important. So the colors around the box. So if the kids were at the purple station, they know they should have been juggling. All the balls, all the cones, anything there would have been purple. If they were at yellow, they know they would have been expected to be playing keep away. All the balls, all the cones, everything would have been yellow. It just really helps us keep everything organized. It keeps the kids moving in a way that they should be moving, so it's safe and effective and everyone's moving and being active, which is why they're there. The center picture is just an example of, we use the whole space. Like, we're very fortunate to have the space that we have and the gym size that we have, and we use every little piece of that gym every single day. So we're very lucky for that, but we do we have it very sectioned off and centers located strategically throughout the gym. And then we had talked about that reflection piece, and that's something that Sierra and it's taken a few years to figure out these plickers. Something that means a lot to us is just keeping the kids active and moving, because that's why they come to us. We want to see kids move. We don't want to take away a lot of that time. So plickers is something we found that is very quick, effective. We can get feedback from kids. We can assess the kids. We can ask questions on how they're feeling. And however they turn that puzzle piece, will give us their answer to whatever the question may be, whether it's a reflection question, a knowledge question. And we can just scan it with an iPad or our phones, and it will tally it all for us. Then that class leaves, the next class comes in, we can slide them all to the side and just cycle to the next class. So we're not worrying about collecting papers and things like that when our schedule is what it is. So it's just an easy and effective way to get feedback and assess kids on where they're at and how they're feeling about things.
So the next pillar that we kind of touched on already is that teamwork and cooperation. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning, we love to force kids in situations where they have to problem solve, right? So we use lots of different pieces of equipment, whether it be hula hoops or our big Omnicom balls. For whatever reason, you bring out the Omnicom balls and their eyes light up and they are just excited and ready to go. Or we pair them up with students that maybe they wouldn't pair themselves up with. And then, of course, the parachute is a number one, always been up there at the top. And we use that a lot when it comes to teamwork. So we talk about different strategies, why it's important to have cooperation skills and to be able to work as a team. And like Michelle said in the beginning, we have double classes all day long. So when you're talking about 48 kindergartners trying to work a parachute together, that's teamwork and cooperation in itself. So bringing all those pieces together, but helping them understand the why behind some of these different games that we do.
All right, and then fitness and nutrition, just a couple examples here. one of our favorite games that we start with our kindergartners is called Superhero Tag, where we talk about the fitness components, and they wear the capes, and they all represent a different fitness component. And we really talk a lot about the colors. So kid cardio is red. We talk a lot about our heart. But then that other graphic on the bottom left is a second grade activity, a bingo activity. But you can see that we keep the colors going. So all the red boxes are all cardio based. All the blue boxes are about flexibility and things like that. So it all just continues to transfer and follow the students to really help ingrain those into their memory, to help them through Horizon and ASA and throughout their school career. So little things like that make a big difference for us. It just helps keep things organized and moving, and we have a lot of connection with the kids because of that.
Okay, so with those three pillars kind of being said, Michelle and I have created many immersive experiences that incorporate all three of those pillars into different experiences for the kids. So we want to share a few of those with you guys because we think they're pretty awesome. So the first one, this is actually new from last year, but we worked with Mr. Sevens from the high school, and he helped us with some black lighting, as you can see. And this is Cosmic Bowling at PLE Lanes. So to give you a little background, a little snapshot, kids would have already learned some of the bowling pieces or specifics. We had already talked about a lot of this, and then this was kind of their big encompassing event. So they got to come in, and we had the black lights, and they were told to wear neon, and all the pins were glowing in the dark, and there was glow-in-the-dark graphics going on. And by the time Michelle and I left, we had a headache, but everybody else, it was great to see the kids come in and really be like, wow, this is really cool. We know some of our students are lucky enough to go to things like this outside of school, but we also have the other side of that coin where they may not be. So we want to really try to do things that are really exciting. And again, it's going to keep them coming back to us, right? PE is awesome, and we want that to carry through as they get older. So this is just one example.
Another one that we really enjoy is our ninja course. So many years ago, we would set up an obstacle course, and that's what we would call it. We've been fortunate enough over the years for PTO to get us some ninja-like equipment. And we're up to the point where we've got like 7 lanes snaking through the gym on our ninja course time. And this, of course, really ties into fitness and our nutrition pillar, where the kids are definitely focusing on muscular strength and muscular endurance, and there's balancing. There's a little bit of everything that goes on in that ninja course. But again, on day one, it's just getting used to the course. How do we rotate? What's what? Where do we go? Kind of thing. And they're continuously moving. And then as we cycle through day 2 and day 3, we may bring up like taking it to that next level and talking about being a safety ninja. Are you moving safely? Are you being patient, being kind to other students around you? Or a grit ninja, it might be really hard, but you're going to power through and you're going to go for it. A fitness ninja, those are just for those kids that are all out and are ready to go, and they're just going to do their best no matter what. They're going to put all their energy into it. And of course, they love it and they have a lot of fun. But so we kind of make them think on different things on a different level and how they can tie in those other aspects into a ninja course like we set up. But their hearts are beating fast. Those kids are moving, and they're leaving with rosy cheeks and sweaty foreheads on those days. So it is definitely a lot of fun.
All right, the next immersive experience that we bring to PLE, and I know Horizon does a little bit of this as well, is the heart course. This one's near and dear to my heart. It's something I learned in student teaching, so I have to give credit to my cooperating teacher. But when I brought it to PLE, we kind of made with what we had, and we were lucky enough again to have a grant and get some equipment that really amplifies this experience for the kiddos. So if you guys kind of take a look at the graphic, all the way in kindergarten up to 2nd grade, we talk about all of these different pieces as far as the heart goes. So in kindergarten, they can tell you that their heart is kind of like a house, right? And it has 4 rooms, and there's 4 doors, and those doors open and close constantly. And the sound of their heart is a lub-dub. And they know that their brain is 2 fists, right? And it weighs about as much as their shoe. So we talk about all of those different pieces. And so they carry that through from kindergarten to 1st grade to 2nd grade. But we take it to that next level because this is an obstacle course. So not only are they learning those pieces, now they're moving their body through that. And I think those connections and bringing that together really helps them as they get older. I know when I had anatomy class, I wish I had the heart course, because I think high schoolers could probably even come over and they would be like, now I understand it,
well,
right?
Just the transferring with oxygen to no oxygen, like they use blue equipment versus red equipment. So just that connection in itself, yeah.
Yeah, and where that oxygen gets delivered, whether it's the brain or different parts of our body. And we talk about all of those different pieces, how the aorta can split into those 2 different spots. So it's something that they get, again, exposed to at a young age and carry through while they're with us and all the way to Horizon and even more.
All right, and then Winter Wonderland, which is what we're currently living in right now, in the gym at PLE. We have a short video we'll share with you what it kind of looks like and sounds like right now in the gym. But it was super exciting today. Today was the first day the kids came, but they're always so excited, and especially the little kindergartners who haven't seen it before, and all the lights. And so if we can play that video and kind of get a glimpse of what our week is going to look like. Is there any sound?
If not, maybe you could sing.
I can
for them.
sing? No.
I think it's just a jingle bell.
There we go.
So that's kind of what we're doing at the moment. We just started today. And so, yeah, that's kind of a snapshot of what we do each day. I feel like we're pretty lucky to have each other to do this with, and thankful for PTO for the equipment we've had over the years and the space that we have. And the kids seem to really enjoy enjoy seeing us, and we enjoy having them and challenging them each and every day. So
Thanks for allowing us to come out and share with you guys.
yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Do we have questions for him?
Yeah, I do. I love what you guys are doing tonight.
Thank you.
Because, getting kids to love being in motion. I mean, there's so many studies that show that it has a positive effect throughout the day. Regulation. You were saying 48 kids?
Depends on the grade level, but we always have 2 classes, right?
Okay.
So
So with, in relation to special needs kids, do you have enough support for that, or what does that look like, as you're doing these things?
if the kids, so I believe, I don't know exactly what their regular classroom looks like. I don't know if there's a shift or a change in any of that. But if it's like a one-on-one kiddo, that kiddo is definitely coming with their aide. And this is meant to be inclusive, so all those kiddos are participating to what extent that they can safely. And then if they are in like an adaptive PE class or something, then we would experience it with them as well in there.
Okay, because like one of the things in particular, like pairing kids with other kids they wouldn't normally. I mean, even when I was in grade school, I was paired with, we had 2 blind students at the school I went to, and I was paired with one of them in gym class. And I'll never forget, because, I mean, I went with him up through 8th grade. But early on when I was in 3rd grade, sometimes I'm like, man, why did I get paired with him, right? But I'll tell you, to this day, I'm still friends with that kid.
Sure.
And we still have lunch and see each other a couple times a month. So, and I'm the father of a special needs kid. And so when my son was in PLE, having him paired with those other kids, I mean, it was huge for my son.
Right.
So,
Yeah, those kiddos are definitely involved and included just as much as any other student.
yeah, so I love that. The clickers too, where you can get a thing. I think that's a brilliant idea. So I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others, questions?
I'll just ask one. What's the biggest positive that's come out, created from the opportunity with the 3rd grade moving out, and you're focused now on K through 2? What has that enabled you to do differently that has been helpful?
I think one of the biggest positives is we used to not have all of our kids for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
3 times a week. We used to have 2 30-minute classes, and then we had something called mini gym, which was like a 10-minute class. So one of the biggest things is that we were able to bump them up to having 3 30-minute classes, which is huge, right? 10 minutes versus that 30 minutes, and getting that content and the things we really want to do with them. That's been a big bonus. Being able to centralize what we're doing, right? I think 3 through 5 is a really good level that kind of goes together, and K2 is a really good level that kind of goes together, and it's allowed us to kind of be more specific and centralize what we're doing as far as our curriculum goes.
Good, thank you. That's why we did it.
I just like to comment. So, if you were to walk through PLE, many days, and you walk past that gym, when you guys kept talking about the colors, it is just the environment you guys put together. It just draws you in. It makes you want to go in there and start. I mean, and I'm 51. If I was 5 or 6, I could barely contain myself wanting to go in there and just jump in and start climbing around and running around and doing those things. And I've observed Sierra and Michelle teach and using the plickers and those different things, and the ability for them to, again, you're talking about 2 sections of kids. You get them in a school of 800 some students, you're getting everybody rotating through, and so using that technology, really, the iPads with the videos that kind of show them how to do the skills, using the plickers so that they can self-assess and give you feedback, so you can see very efficiently in the time that you have how they're doing with the skills as well as your observations. But it is always such a colorful, bright, engaging environment. It is very multiple in terms of the approaches that are, the equipment's used. It's such a variety of things. It's different than what I remember being a kid. The variety of equipment and experiences and activities is just awesome. So you guys do a great job. I really appreciate the presentation tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Very much appreciate it. Thanks for coming
Thank
tonight.
you.
And if you catch Mike playing anything, make sure to
Takes a
Feel
video.
free to come anytime this week and go sledding.
Yay.
I think next up we have our board representative reports.
Okay, so for our first topic of discussion today, we just wanted to talk a little bit about the high school fall play. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Puffs play that happened in November, but we had a chance to speak to a student and also the publicity manager, Mrs. Bangs, to kind of get a sense of more of the behind the scenes and the marketing aspect. So when we got a chance to talk to Haley Maynard, she talked about her experience and her real enjoyment for designing T-shirts, posters. She even made press release, taking photos for the cast, and designing logos. And one thing that she really talked about is that how it really modeled a real marketing experience for her. She not only had that creative liberty where she was actively helping the drama department and contributing to the school. She found great satisfaction in that, but also she did find some struggles along the way with the time management aspect. And even though it was a struggle for her, she found that it was providing her the opportunity to practice those skills that you would and those struggles you would have in that real world position. So she really found a great experience doing that. But from even the teacher's perspective, one thing that she really has for the students as a goal is that throughout this production, students would be the ones completely running it, from being the directors to blocking sections of the play, being technical directors to doing this publicity aspect. And they found that they've met this goal 100% of the time. So the fact that it's very student driven, but also students are having benefit and seeing benefit and how it's transferring outside of even the theater program, I think is phenomenal. And one thing that we thought, in our conversation with Mrs. Bangs, there's one thing that she said that we'd like to share with you all. She mentioned that the growth we've seen in the program has allowed us to take more risks, consider more challenging creative opportunities, and improve the quality of what we're able to produce. Above all, however, what I continue to be so touched by in the theater department is how accepting the group is of students. It is here where students who don't fit in anywhere else find a place to fit, and these are experiences that students remember for the rest of their lives. So her passion through our conversation with her was so strong, and this is something that even if you're not the ones if you're not the ones performing, even the ones behind the scenes who are doing the social media aspect are gaining so much from this program and are giving so much to this program. And we just wanted to highlight the contributions that they've made to this program.
Awesome. Could I just interject? Becky, would you mind maybe making that like 150%? Just for the views, so it's just a little bit easier for people to read. Thank you. You guys can keep going.
Okay. So our next topic of discussion was for community connections, basically discussing different ways that students throughout the district have been able to connect with their community through service and different events. So one of the first things that happened, I believe last week or it was the week before, was the Jerseys for Jackson event, which honored one of the victims of the Waukesha tragedy, who was a young victim and had a dream of becoming a professional baseball player when he was older. So through this, students from all 4 schools were able to participate by wearing a jersey to school that day, and the participation was great. I really enjoyed seeing all the people wearing these jerseys in support and really unifying for this one cause.
Yeah, another thing we'd like to talk about is some of the things that Key Club has been doing. So you might have seen a lot of social media posts about the baby clothes that were donated to Aurora West Alice Medical Center. And the great thing about this is that Key Club was not only keeping this as an event for just Key Club, we connected with so many different groups. This project was firstly requested by Pewaukee alumni. Then there was a partnership with Insight Elements of Health and Medicine. There was a partnership with Mrs. Simona's Parenting and Fashion Analysis and Construction classes, which they created actually items for this drive. And yeah, there were all these different individuals. So the students of Key Club were not only trying to give back to the community, but they were also finding ways to get other students involved to connecting to the community as well. And another thing that actually we have going on this week, and what was great that we were able to have, are the common area spaces and even the spaces connecting us to the middle school, because we were able to make our tie blankets using these spaces and the cars that we decorated for Children's Hospital. So being able to have these spaces even are benefiting these events and our ability to, contribute back to the community.
And then we wanted to highlight our local FBLA chapter in their, I guess, different take on a service project. So for our FBLA, we had 4 different service projects that we partnered with Positively Pewaukee to partner with 4 businesses in helping them with different marketing aspects and business aspects to really engage students in developing the skills that we've learned in class while also having some sort of service aspect of it. So we partnered with the Visiting Angels, Passport to Pewaukee, Spargo, and American Family Insurance so students could use their marketing skills to create marketing plans or even help these businesses try to improve their marketing through connections with the Pewaukee community, specifically with the schools.
Yeah, and our last one, for the first 3 that we provided for you, these were ways that students were doing community service. But there's one student in particular, Tiara Tran. She's actually a student who's currently studying abroad in Taiwan right now. So she is going through this program called the National Security Language Initiative for Youth. And she's, I personally know her, and she spent her freshman to her junior year really immersed herself in language. She actually took like the Chinese and the Spanish programs here, and because of that she really grew passionate for language and she pursued this program, and she is currently spending this semester connecting and immersing herself in language. So we just wanted to share this with you because we thought this was another great way that a student from Pewaukee is connecting through language, but connecting around the world actually. So we thought it would be a really unique thing to share with you all.
And then lastly, we wanted to just share a quick update on the highlights from the start of the winter athletics season. So the Pewaukee girls dance team was able to host the Pirate Pursuit dance competition, which was a great success. The boys and girls basketball teams have found great success in their seasons, as well as the girls, I believe on Saturday, had a great win against West Dallas Central, and the boys basketball team played a highly anticipated matchup against Menominee Falls and came out on top. The boys and girls hockey team, as well as the boys swim team, has also had great success and has had a great start to their season. And wrestling this past Saturday was able to go to Bayport and participate in the Battle of the Bay, in which we had a first place finisher, a second place finisher, and 2 fifth place finishers. So overall, a really great start to our winter sports season. Lastly, we'd like to end with salutes. So we'd like to salute Tiara Tran for her work with the National Security Language Initiative for Youth. We'd like to salute the advisors, Mrs. Montez and Mrs. Weltstein, for the NHS induction ceremony, which was also a great success. We'd like to salute Haley Maynard and Mrs. Bangs for their work in helping us and providing information about the drama department and the musical and the play. And then Mr. Prell and Mrs. Straub are the 2 advisors to FBLA and Key Club, and we'd like to salute them for their work with the different service projects and volunteering that they've been able to provide for students.
Great report,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for the student reps?
Do you know, will they be doing a marketing campaign for the spring musical that's coming up?
Yeah, I think they are actually in the works of like putting together their marketing materials. When we last talked to her, I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure how in depth like the campaign will be, but I know they're pretty. Their marketing processes are pretty robust.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Thank you again.
Great report. Well done.
Well done. Next item on the agenda is our COVID update.
All right. Some good trends. So probably some of our more positive news that we've had in the last several weeks. Currently, the district is in orange. It's been in orange category after being in red for a number of weeks. Orange for the 3rd consecutive week. We were down to a 7.71 7-day confirmed weekly average. Internally, student cases, as I kind of shared out the draft report with the board earlier today, have declined for 4 or for 3 consecutive weeks, 4 consecutive weeks actually. Just a month ago, we had 44 cases, positive cases in the district. Today we had 10. So we are in single digits in all of our schools for the first time. So lowest cases that we've had since mid-October. So that's really positive to see. Census tracked data where we look at a number of cases over the past 10 days has dropped for the past 4 days, and so we're under 100 for the first time since I believe early November in those census tracked numbers, so that's very positive. So all of those things are really good trends that we're seeing throughout the boundaries of the school district. We still are in a high category in terms of transmission in the community, but that rate has continued to come down, but it's should be noted that that is still high. But considering our multiple weeks in orange, the trends of kind of the dropping rates, and in particular those internal cases that we look at, my recommendation is to suspend the test to stay protocol. You'll recall after a couple of weeks in red, we had instituted K through 8 a test to stay protocol in which for the first time this year, students who were non-symptomatic close contacts through contact tracing needed to provide evidence of a negative COVID test to be able to return to school. Previous to that, they were simply notified, and families are notified that they had been identified as a close contact. With the drop in rates, that would be my recommendation, is to suspend the test to stay protocol and just return to managing things under the items that are outlined in level orange. Trying to think if there's anything else to highlight. You can see the data again. 10 positive active cases, 14 students in quarantine, which is a drop of 20 from last week, which was already down considerably from the week before. We only have 1 staff member currently out for COVID-related reasons. So we're happy to see some downward trends with COVID. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
What's your gut tell you that's going to happen after Christmas break?
Boy, who knows? I mean, trying to predict what this virus will do sometimes is difficult. You know, you try to look for patterns that exist. Certainly, a pattern in the data that we see is where you have more vaccination available and higher rates of vaccination, you have lower cases. That's why we've consistently seen that at the middle school and the high school at those grades where we've had lower cases. That's now an option for people. For kids that are 5 years and older. So the hope is that that'll have some impact and we'll see less of these kind of jumps and spikes, because going even through last week, I think last week's numbers in the school districts in Waukesha County, it had risen to about 75% of the school age cases were 11 years old or younger. But currently, I think we only have 1 case at Horizon and 2 or 3 at POE. So we've seen that really come down. So my hope would be, you know, that we continue to see that trend. Of course, you have the whole Omicron thing. Who knows what that's going to do? I'm sure you've all been kind of following that. The really positive news, potentially positive news from that, are the early inferences that although it appears in the places where they've had it, like South Africa, for longer, it may very much be more contagious, but also milder. And so there's some that would suggest that that could be potentially very good news, because if it can crowd out the Delta variant, which causes more, substantial illness, that maybe that could help reduce severity of illness. So, but even as we've had the spikes with the Delta, they have not, with school-age children, have not seen an increase in hospitalizations or severity. Not that that can't happen in rare circumstances; it certainly can. But that would be welcome news if what they're seeing early with that Omicron is that it's less severe. So, I don't know, I'm hopefully optimistic that we get into 2022 and we get on a really good trend here.
Thank you. Other questions for Mike? No? Okay. Well, thank you, Mike. Next on the agenda is comments from citizens. Becky, did you get any cards? Nobody's running up to the microphone? Okay. If not, then I guess I'm going to open it up to the board for salutes and recognitions. Just jump in there anyway.
I wanted to salute Danielle and the math people.
Team, yeah.
When I read your proposed changes for the math curriculum, I was just really impressed with your openness and ability to backtrack a little bit. You know, you tried something, you determined it probably wasn't working the way you wanted it to work, and you listened to some parents that had feedback, and I was really appreciative for the movement on that. It is something that I know nothing about, so I could not offer any expertise about it, but like I said, I just appreciated that you followed feedback and were able to respond.
Thank you. I'll just comment that Katrina Tolinar, James Bartz, Abby Bartz, Melissa Schultz are the ones that, from a teaching standpoint, said, you know, can we take a second look at this? Here's the data that we're seeing. Here's the trends that we're seeing. You know, we have some ideas on potential solutions. And so hats off to our teachers who, you know, advocated for students and said, here's what we're seeing in the classroom. And, you know, my job was easy, right? I just had to listen to really smart people.
Part of your job is to put those smart people there.
So thank you.
I wanted to second the student representatives, their salute to the students that became members of the National Honor Society recently. I think that's a great accomplishment, and it shows how engaged and driven these students are to take that up. So.
Well, I'll jump in there. I thought Steve might do this, but to John's group for another wonderful audit that came out. Just really a great job again, and you know, and just well-managed district, and everything came out perfect, basically, on the thing. So
Yeah, we're going to have a good review of that, I think, later.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. That's great.
Administrators, do you have any salutes or recognitions you'd like to provide?
John or Danielle? You know, a lot of good salutes already. Musab and Khadijah, you hit on a lot of them. I had mine, but I'm going to salute Khadijah as the president of NHS, who did a nice job speaking at that meeting. It was really enjoyable to bring that group of students together for the first time in 2 years, because the year before there had been virtual induction into NHS, so it was nice to have that induction ceremony in person. And Khadijah, I thought you and the other students that were part of that did a really nice job.
Thank you for that, Mike. All right, if there are none other, I will go on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes from a previous meeting, some correspondence, and we don't have any gifts at this moment to accept. So unless there's questions or corrections, I look for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0. I'm going to turn it over now to Steve for the Business Affairs Committee report.
Yes, so we spent half our time going through with Paul Franz from Baker Tilly the audit results of their work. We're going to share that in the new business section later on tonight, so we'll hold conversation about that till that point. And then we did our normal activities as a Business Affairs Committee, and we reviewed check registers, financial reports, expenses so far this year, and all the questions from board members were adequately, properly, fully addressed, and any concerns were covered, and we believe that all things were found to be in order.
Thank you. Any questions for Steve and the committee? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to accept the report from the Business Affairs Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you, Steve. Down to new business. We're going to talk about the long-range capital projects plan. So we have John Stangler here tonight with us. So come on down, John.
So tonight we'll go through what's become an annual process for the board to take a look at our long-range capital projects plan. And you'll see a new format this year. What we wanted to do is create this fresh start. We just completed the largest project that the district has had in a long time. and we accomplished a lot on the facilities around the district. So reframing this to give you a bigger picture of where are the buildings at, where are the facilities at, what is a little bit of the history of the facilities, and where are we at looking forward on the projects. One of the elements that we always want to look at when we look at the long-range capital projects plan is not just here's what you have to spend, but we also want to take a look at here's how we finance capital projects, and here's how we provide resources for that. So if we go all the way back to like 2008, we had two different plans. We had a 5-year capital project plan, and we had a 10-year long-term capital projects plan. The 10-year plan was those big items. If we keep growing and we have 10% more kids, or we hit a threshold in a building, what are we going to do with that building? What's going to be that next big project that comes on? The short-term plan was, what does it take to keep up what we have and stay ahead of what needs to be fixed in what we have? Those two projects exist. Those two plans existed separately all the way up until 2013, when we combined them into a single long-range capital projects plan. It coincided with the adoption of the long-range capital projects trust fund, Fund 46, that we could put money away into to save up for that future needs, for those future needs for capital projects. So funding these always comes from multiple sources. The basic philosophy is that we're going to invest about 1% of our operating budget, plus or minus 1% of our operating budget, into repairing, replacing, restoring, extending the life of the facilities that we have. That comes from funding in the general fund, in our capital improvement trust fund, in our long-range capital projects fund, Fund 41, and using debt when necessary. So if a project exceeds the cost of what can be accomplished in one given year, you may issue debt in Fund 38, non-referendum debt, within your revenue limit, and spread that cost over multiple years to be able to accomplish the projects that need to be done. So big picture, we strive to make that allocation in every budget year of 1% roughly. We've grown that as high as 4% when the need was there, and allocated that much budget to it in any given year. John and his team then do a great job of identifying what are those things. We've got 1,000 VAVs within the building. What is the status of every one of those in the district, and when are they going to need to be replaced, and what do we have to invest in them to make them last longer? So getting granular on all those components of the buildings and identifying where are we going to need to do some work on that in the future. And that's the culmination of that work comes out in this long-term capital projects plan that we share with you each year to give you that good picture of what is it going to take to keep things going, and where are we at? Where are we at as a district? You don't hear about deferred maintenance because we put a plan like this forward to be able to address that. So that was more than I wanted to say, so I'll turn it over to John.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, one, thank you for having me, and also thank you for caring about our facilities and investing in our facilities. Obviously, you've seen throughout the plan where we've made, numerous investments over the last 30 years that have definitely helped, make our facilities top notch. Just kind of walking through a couple things in the plan that are priority. If you just want to scroll through a little bit, Becky. Just the criteria piece, down towards the bottom of this page, just talking about life cycle, aesthetics, programming, energy efficiency, safety, security. We kept the criteria piece in there just because that is very critical in determining the need, and also, how fast we might be able to do something. If it's a safety or security thing, all right, it might slide the list a little bit faster than, say, something just involving aesthetics. You will see a lot of life cycle items throughout the plan, and also if you want to go to the next page. So I tried to color code it a little bit differently. We kind of had projected year on there in the past, but we've just kind of put it, in blocks where 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, or 7 to 10 years. So we just wanted to be able to kind of give blocks or rough time periods of when we expect to try and complete some of these projects. Obviously, this is fluid sometimes. Some things slide up the list, some things slide down the list. You will see as we get towards like the ground section, a couple of those items do have a year kind of set on them, because that's what we expect for the life cycle of, say, the turf or the track or Pirate Pass for repaving. So just those are kind of set where it's going to be right around that year where we will have to make a substantial investment in order to replace that or update that. Want to go to the next page? There's obviously, we have a detail of all the history of all the referendums, the financial planning, and what you know, the different funding mechanisms that we have for, you know, taking care of some of these items. You'll see a lot of items on here that will, you know, there'll be a few items that we will be putting in the budget plan for next year. You know, which budget it's necessarily coming out of, we don't necessarily know yet. It just kind of depends upon how things flow into the spring. You'll also see, if you want to go right to the high school, Becky. So I'll just kind of jump right into it. Obviously, you know, there's a crazy supply chain ripple effect right now. Definitely foresee it happening, you know, continuing for at least another 2 years. Definitely, I mean, from, you know, roofing materials to air handling units right now, 20 to 24 weeks. So there will be a few items on here where, you know, if we're going to bid them out for the summer of 23, we're going to be bidding them out next fall. There's a couple items like, say, turf. Like if you want to do turf next summer at all, you had to have it bid out in October or November in order to be able to complete it next summer. So like that's the craziness of some of these supply chain effects that are happening throughout the industry, and also just, I mean, obviously happening with everything, but I'm just saying where you have to bid it out far in advance in order to complete it the following summer. So that, you know, like even this December, well, we might even contemplate moving this up next year just because of, hey, when we might have to bid some items out by. What you will see with the high school, just a couple of additions on there. Nothing too new, just some of the kitchen items that we're looking at doing in the near future. So based upon the success of the kitchen program, we're going to continue to make some investments, you know, whether it be a level 2 hood for some of the items that we're going to be using in the kitchen, updating the flooring. You know, there's one place that we really haven't updated recently. Also, like say the tech ed wing, you know, that's another big area that wasn't touched with all the recent referendums. We touched, I mean, 95% of this building's been touched throughout the past 2 referendums, and it's in really good shape, except there's a couple areas like that are tech ed. Hey, we'll definitely have to look into it, investigate that of what our best options are going forward. You know, could be a fab lab, could be this, could be that. I mean, we have multiple options. I'm not going to say there's one solution, because I think there's multiple solutions of what we can do with that wing and also that area, and just picking up that whole that part of the building. You know, you will see items that like, all right, you know, we're going to definitely see that roof coating 1, 2, and 7, which is actually right above us, going down this way. This is something we're definitely going to be pushing in this next summer. And then also like some of the other, you know, energy items, and even say those locker fronts. I remember coming to you probably 5 years ago with the padlocks and the recess locks. We still have about 204, I believe, that are left at the high school on the front face that we have to replace the entire locker front in order to switch those out. We can't just change out the recess lock and throw a padlock on her. So there's a couple of random items like that, like, hey, you know what, we'll be probably knocking them out next summer. As far as the high school goes, not many really other, you know, surprises. Just, you know, we're just trying to, you know, make sure those items are aware, and also thinking long term. You know, there's some items long term, like say auditorium lighting. You know, it's more of a life cycle. You know, what we look at for like an in multi-purpose indoor. You know, we're a community center at night. I've got some great data to display that of how active our buildings are in the evening, and you know, and it's not just students, it's community members that are using our facilities. Obviously, the last 2 years there hasn't been as many hours or occurrences, but you know, we're busy, we're active, we're open all the time here. It's amazing. You know, weekends too, just the amount of weekend activities we have going on in our buildings. It's unbelievable. But just great things they have happening in our buildings. That's about all I have to say on the high school. In case if you have any other questions on high school, you can scoot to the next slide. Middle school, just a couple, you know, little items. Most of the items were taken care of as part of the referendum. You know, we're going to continue to look at the solar option in the near future, and we might do a section of that piece. We you know, that's a full 389 kilowatt system. That's the max you can do. So you know, maybe we do 100, 150. You know, there's other options like that we could do as well. We don't have to do the whole large, but part of it is just trying to time it out with the newer roofing systems. So if we have newer roofs, it's most advantageous for us to put solar on new roofs as opposed to putting them old and then having to take it off and then, you know, redo all that. So just a couple of items there.
What's the payback on solar now?
CNA thing from 7 to 10 years right now. It just kind of depends. Seven. Yeah, I'm seeing a 7 to 10. Was it 10? Yeah, I'm trying to think from our solar last. Yeah, it was around 7 to 10 year payback, and it really just depends on the size, and also depends on what you're paying per kilowatt. Like say in this building, we're paying 10, 11, 12 cents per kilowatt. We're over at Horizon or PLE, we're paying 13 or 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So it was just because of size, and then also what grouping each of the buildings fall into based upon the size of how many kilowatt per hour they're using. So we're seeing.
So on the service schedule, because we're pulling more power here, you get a cheaper rate. Is that it?
I wish that. Well, yes, we would with solar.
Well,
except,
no, I'm just saying, right? The difference between schools is just that's
Yeah.
a service
Correct.
line on the schedule. That
Correct. Yep.
What's the life cycle on that solar?
As far as the panels go, I've seen anything from like 25 to 30. What they're going for like 30 years they're lasting, and then you have to look at replacing them. There's a couple of different from the renewable energy one, and also like say there's something like New Berlin did something with We Energies where it was like payback. So I think they're still trying to iron out some of those. There are some opportunities out there. I just don't think it's as advantageous for us yet. But I do think there'll be some more coming up in the near future as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. If you want to go to the next school. Horizon, a lot of these are just more life cycle. The building was 2002, so like you'll see a lot of those roofs that are coming up 2002. They're 2002 buildings, so a lot of the roofs are going to come up about 27, 28. As far as it's 27, 28, which you'll see on the last page regarding the roofing. Same thing, like say the flooring rebranding. We did a great job with the new addition there to brand it. We just want to do the same thing with, like say the library and the other gym and just update those. So, I mean, it's nothing too crazy, but just trying to, keep updating and branding. And also you look at, say, flooring. Flooring is a big thing. The VCT, it's a 25-year life cycle or life expectancy. Well, it's 2002, so 25 years. Well, all right, well, we're going to have to look at replacing that in the near future. So, no real surprises there, just, items that, hey, we can knock off this, we can knock off that. If we have budget, all right, we might, upgrade, add some more security cameras, or we might sand, repaint, refinish the floor. So there's a couple things that, creatively we can sneak in from time to time. Also, like, say, looking at the bleachers, but no other real surprises off of there. Again, same thing, I had the yellow, the highlighted ones are new ones that are new to the plan that haven't been on there in the past, but just want to make sure you're aware of, so we try to eliminate those surprises. Go ahead to PLE there. PLE, the attic unit, I didn't have a number there because we just bid it out, so it's at $140,000 right now for replacing the attic unit. We're just waiting on a bid on the condensing unit to go along with it, so we're trying to rotate that in. Also, those roofing sections at 96 edition, pretty much the whole southeastern portion of Pewaukee Lake Elementary is due. So you'll see that in the roofing plan on the next page of the detail of how we kind of have them spaced out over the next few years, just from a roofing plan, and also just trying to space them out a little bit more as opposed to trying to do them all in 1 year. But like say for PLE, we just got to be respectful of summer school and other programming that we might be doing over the summer, just to try and do Horizon 1 year, do PLE the other year, so we can kind of balance summer school appropriately. So we just got to be cognizant of that. We added 1 and 5 on there because those are only 2 units on the elementary school that haven't been replaced or updated in the last, say, 10 years. Most of the other units have been updated. There's actually one item I forgot to add on here, and it was actually the PLE playground. The one older section closest to Circle Drive, it's in good shape. It's not in great shape, but it's not in poor shape. So, but it's something that, say, we'll look at partnering with PTO, and the school to do a community build again if we can. But I would love to be able to do that in the near future. I forgot to add on here, but it's kind of more, might be something just to take to the PTO and be like, hey, here's something we're looking at doing, and kind of, get the school behind it, because obviously, like say FIAD, they're going to want to be a part of it. The school's going to be part of it. So we want to make sure they're all a part of that process in order to make it happen. If you want to go to the last page. Grounds-wise, There's a few catch basins that need repair. There's one that's about 50 feet in from Pirate Pass, or coming in off of Prospect on Pirate Pass. There's that one little dip you probably hit every time with your car. Yep, that's a catch basin we're going to be taking care of next summer. There's also one in the northwest corner of the high school by exit 40, 41, 42 there, that right by the sidewalk. We know it's an issue. It's not a safety concern, but it's something we're going to be addressing next summer. We replaced some concrete nearby, but I didn't really want to open up Pandora's box or the can of worms if I tried to do it quick this last summer, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's a little more than I thought it was going to be. So I had to do a little more investigation of that, of what it would take to rebuild those and to take care of that. Also, like say, I was talking about that softball turf earlier. You know, if we're looking at possibly doing that in 23, we're going to want to be bidding that out by next fall, just sort of make that happen. There's some of those other ones are just making them aware, making you guys aware of, what those life expectancies are on the track and the turf. I think we've gotten definitely great mileage of it. The turf was 8 years old this last summer, so we're at 8.5 years on that turf. Typical, what they usually see is 8 to 10 years, but we fully expect that to last anywhere from 10 to 14 years. Just with the GMAX testing ratings that we received and, inspections, and, we maintain it. We run the sports champ cleaning on it just about annually now. So just to keep it up, make sure fibers are sticking up, make sure there's enough rubber infill in the areas, and, try to keep up. And I mean, the bleachers definitely helped out with just having the ability to host more events and host more people. And I was glad we were able to fill those up. So that's one of those nice things from my perspective, that I get to see the instant gratification. Also, visibly you can see the results. That's the nice thing about being able to see the results of a lot of our projects, is it's visible. Yes, there are some random things behind the scenes, boilers and that. Yeah, I know, not very exciting, but not very exciting for the general or the average person, but they're critical in making sure our spaces are heated or cooled on a regular basis. So nice thing is when you walk into a space, it's the right room temperature, we're in good shape. If you just want to scroll down a little bit, Becky. So we just tried to lay out the roofing as the best we could over the next 5-6 years of what we'd be looking for in investment wise. And even at 24-25 that you see, the 400 and 310, there's easily ability where we can just combine those and do the 710 in one summer. So just make you aware of that. So, but those are roofs that are coming up. Through preventive maintenance, we'd be able to extend a lot of the life cycles and expectancies of a few of those ballasted roofs. But when you get towards the end of that life cycle for roofing systems, you really want to replace it before it becomes a constant cost to cure of repairs. So I just tried to lay that out the best we could, but having a good snapshot, of easily the next 7-8 years for roofing. But it's just those 96 and 2002 editions that are definitely, coming up, that are large numbers, and we'll need to take care of. Questions?
I think you alluded to this once before, but the potential to put the solar panels on the roofs, does that extend the life of the roof, or does it not make a difference?
Yes and no. One, it's more difficult to repair, but two, a lot of times you're not getting the UV on the roofing system itself. So sometimes the roofing systems themselves will last a little bit longer, just because the UV and not everything's hitting it constantly. Where if it's just full rubber and there's nothing on there, well, eventually UV is going to start, deteriorating the roof over time.
So, but if that's the case, then when you talked about the Asa Clark, I mean, is it, to our advantage to do the whole roof or part of the roof, or how do you? Well,
it just depends how much we would do. And we're kind of limited to what we would do. And, you try to pick some of those larger roofs where you have less penetrations on the roof, and also less air handling units on the roof, just from a weight perspective. Most of them can all accommodate them, but like say, we would be tackling the gyms. We'd be putting them on the gyms primarily, and then anything that's, going to definitely be more southward facing. The higher roofs, so there's some roofs that it's not going to be advantageous for it to do. So we've already kind of had a couple layouts, couple mock-ups of which roofs would be completed. But like say, when you get to Horizon, where we replace that could be an opportunity for us to put some solar on Horizon or a PLE. So we just have to have that conversation with because sometimes they consider us as one entity, so we'd be limited to 389 total I've heard, but then I've also heard from another person at we like, well, no, that's per building. I'm like, well, so we'll have to have that conversation when we look at that.
And it could change by the time we get there.
Yeah, certainly.
But well, that's a good question, though. I mean, John, is there potential funding in the works or anything that's coming down the pike that might help pay for some of this stuff or not?
That's one of the parts of the exploration. If you look at the sustainability component of the facilities and operations in the long-range plan, one of those action plans is to study the feasibility and the funding mechanisms that are available. He mentioned another district that put up a solar array, and that was through like an ESCO, where the project is financed by a third party, and the savings that you generated are used to pay for the financing of that cost. So it becomes dollar neutral, but it's a partnership that you would develop. So there's opportunities that are out there. The full bill that you saw of $650,000, I wouldn't anticipate that would be your full cost, but that's part of our exploration in this next year and see what's happening with it.
Upon my most recent investigation to that, I've seen grants like upwards of 120,000 total that they would put towards the largest system. Like you could get maybe 100 of that covered, roughly, between two different grants, between the renewable energy ones and a couple other ones that are out there.
Kind of where I'm going on this is it's like, how frequently should we be, or you guys are visiting this, or how frequently should we be kind of kept in the loop on this discussion? I mean, it's another longer term investment, but if it pays back for the district, you know.
And that's the one thing that you always want to look at is the payback on it. You know, years ago, this was 15 to 16 years, over 20 years as a payback, and then we saved the study that we did, revisited it every couple of years. Now it's been more frequent because it's becoming more and more a topic where there's more and more opportunities. So to say that we'd be looking at it multiple times a year, yeah, when we are in touch with those individuals that are our points of contact, what's new? They know that we're looking at it. If an opportunity comes, they're going to approach us, we're going to approach them and keep that dialogue open all the time, and then we would come to the board when that opportunity was there.
One other question, and it's really related to the turf for the softball fields.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when we did the football field, we had to put in a tremendous amount of drainage systems and, went to some of I think we actually even had to expand the retention pond or something to do some of those things and drain it out of there. Given the location of where the softball field is, what are we gonna have to do to prep that area for drainage and all the components of that, so.
Yeah, that was not a nice part of a lot of the work that was done over here the last year and a half, the summer of 2019, when we did all the infrastructure work around here. One of the pieces of forethought that we asked them to look at was, what would happen if you would do something like this? It's on a long-range capital plan. What would it look like if we were able to do something like this, and what would be the cost impact of that? So it's something that's been analyzed, and there's feasible solutions that are not overly expensive to be able to address that.
But the drainage from that area, we have to worry about a retention pond connection or?
Is it a little early to design it
Yeah.
at this point, I think?
No, but I'm just thinking though, in terms of stuff, to invest $400,000 in a turf softball field in a location that may not be a really good location for a softball field, okay? I'm sorry, but it just, to put $400,000 there, and if we don't have the drainage, and I'm coming back to what you were saying, John, in the sense that what the football field, you've been able to maintain it, and I think some of it is reflective of the fact that we've invested in the drainage system, all the stuff that's underneath that field helps, or at least my perceptions are, it helps us to maintain it. And if we have a field where we don't have the ability to maintain it, are we just gonna put $400,000 there, and then it's like, well, it's not gonna last anyhow?
No,
So-
that's definitely a consideration. When that location was investigated for the feasibility, it passes. If you remember, we did the tennis courts. We had to create a drainage system for the tennis courts, much the same condition. There's no place for that to go other than down the ditch. So swales were created around that with a connection to the pond over here. By the student parking lot.
West side,
Okay.
That is still there, and it's right on the perimeter of where this project would be. So that's an opportunity for us to leverage some of the other work that we've done here on campus to be able to find a solution.
Other questions for John?
Any of that recent federal money, can that go to any of like the HVAC system or anything like that?
That's one of the opportunities that we explore when it comes to that. We talked about a little bit last week at the committee or at the learning session what those federal dollars look like. The largest pot of money that we get out of it, almost 80% of what we anticipate receiving, is questionable as to what the availability is going to be of that money. So it's kind of early to answer that question, whether we'd be able to or not. There's a lot of unknowns over the next 24 months that we have to get to.
I think I'm just happy when I look at this budget and think of the ones that we've had in the past years, how many big ticket items we've managed to take off of it with a referendum.
I think the other point to make is you do a great job keeping these facilities up. They look great all the time, so thank you to you and the rest of your team. We really have just a wonderful set of buildings, facilities, and grounds, so thank you for that.
Yep.
Good comment.
No,
Thank you, Brian.
I'll make Rue know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Don't go too far.
Yeah, don't go too far.
I just had to
Yeah.
set down one stack, so I'm ready for the next one.
Safety drill log consideration. So you might want to give a little bit background for some of the newer.
So
people
just
here.
a little bit of background on this. In April 2018, Act 143 requires all schools to conduct 2 safety drills or school violence drills each calendar year. So this is just the formal process for that, where the board has to formally approve that we've conducted 2 safety drills in each of our buildings each calendar year. And also there's a number of reporting items of, like, say, the number of people that we train, that we have participate in safety training, ALS training, other training, and also site assessments. All of these are items that I report to the Office of School Safety every year, annually, just from a compliance standpoint. So we do this, but this is all going back to Act 143 that this state approved it back in 2018.
Do we actually need a motion to accept these reports?
Yeah, the recommendation is right on the bottom here for what the recommendation would be.
Would somebody like to make that motion and
Are
read
there
it?
any questions about the?
Sure, sorry, thank you,
safety
Steve.
incident?
Any questions? No?
I think our team's gotten better at the way they document them. I remember the very first year we did this, and I think they've really learned from the process, and I think they did a great job in this year's packet. What I saw, I thought was well stated.
Yeah, we continue to build on those. I mean, that's always the goal. We try to evolve, we try to move, we try to update. Especially with the, trying to do COVID-friendly drills and try to do more tabletop, intercom-related drills are difficult, but at the same point, we need to do them. We talked about a little bit with the high school, middle school drill, where we kind of have just postponed that till next month just because of the parade, just because we've had so many staff members and students affected by the tragedy. So we're just trying to be cognizant of that. But we continue to, evolve and try to get better, try to keep adding things to our drills, and then try to, do different functions of our ALICE, training that we can do. That's what we try to do. But yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, the APs have done a great job, and they collaborate on a regular basis regarding these drills. And we have our SRO involved. I'm involved. A couple other people are involved on just trying to give different tabletops, give different exercises, and give different opportunities for kids to practice during the drills.
Yeah, and I noticed even for kids who were on remote learning, we incorporated them, and they thought about their environments in their home and what would the exercise look like for them, and I think that's great for them to have that perspective.
Yep.
So
Yeah, you never know where you need it. We had a couple staff members that were using Stop the Bleed on the parade, in the parade route. They were jumping on and helping out with the Stop the Bleed. So, it's not necessarily for the school. It's kind of the all hazards approach for anywhere you go, and looking out for those things and just kind of being aware of your surroundings, and also giving yourself options of what you can do to help.
I thought it was interesting when they just had the shooting up in Oakwood, how many of the students afterward that survived said, we put into action the plan that they taught us.
Yeah, Oxford,
block-
you talk about Oxford, right?
Oakwood.
Michigan.
Oakwood, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Oxford High School.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, and they talked about the ALICE training that they had
Yeah.
received, and yeah, no, it was great to see that.
Stacy? Anything? Eric, Ann?
Good, thank you.
Okay. All right.
I'll say
Thank you.
then
I was
to,
looking at you, yeah.
to accept for purposes of board review at this meeting, the written drill evaluation submitted by the principals under section 118.07, part 4, subpart CP of the state statutes from Pewaukee Lake Elementary, Horizon Elementary, Asa Clark Middle School, and Pewaukee High School as listed.
Second.
All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Next on the agenda, we always review the calendar for budget and staffing plan, and John, you want to walk us through it?
Sure. So based on tonight here in the audit report, we have the final action that's taken on the 2021 fiscal year budget. We're about halfway through the 21-22, and this starts the development of the 22-23 fiscal year budget that starts on July 1st of 22. Calendar follows a pretty typical cycle. We use a very student-centric budget development process where it's driven by student selection process. 80% of our budget is staff, and it's driven by the selections of the students that they have when it comes to course selection, which starts right after they get back from the new year in January. So our staff, our principals, and our department heads will be making their recommendations to the senior leader team the second week of February as that process goes, and also bring in any recommendations they have for their operating budget for their non-personnel side of the budget. We'll work to get that all balanced and identify what revenues we have to be able to bring that together and present it to the board in April. April 25th, I believe, is the date for that. In the calendar, you have an idea of each of those different areas for department chairs or department heads or principals and what the sub-budgets are that they're overseeing and developing in that process. We then look at beginning of May for a second chance for the board members to ask questions and get feedback on the operating budget that we're proposing and adopt the budget. That gives us the authority then to begin placing orders for the fall. As you heard earlier, some of the supply chain issues, things will go out real quick after that May 9th approval, if it happens there, to make sure that we have what we need ready here when the students come back at the end of August. And then follows pretty typical cycle with the annual meeting in August. September, third Friday count. In October, we get our equalization aid certified, our property values validated from the previous spring, and finally set the levy for December of 22 tax bills at the end of October. So are any questions?
Looks good.
That process of developing the budget, make sure that each one of the budget areas and that has alignment then with those strategic goals that we've adopted to make sure that where we're putting our money is where we say we want to invest it to get better as an organization.
Any questions then? All right, thank you, John. Next up is, well, Stacy gave us a little preview there, but talking about the changes to the math curriculum and acceleration. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Pasonic.
Yeah, so you saw the materials included in the board packet. And as sort of alluded to earlier, so we had staff that brought forward some data and some items that over the last few years since we've implemented the new curriculum, we saw that the kind of second group of acceleration, right, we accelerate at 6th grade, but then another opportunity to accelerate at 9th grade and compact math 1 and 2. That the pace of the high school with 85 minutes every other day was a little fast, because again, this is a group that, you know, wasn't maybe quite as ready to accelerate earlier in their education career, but either they are very passionate and motivated or still have strong math skills. And so, but running into a bit of a roadblock at the high school with the amount of time that they have. And so looking at the curriculum, Math 8 and Math 1 have a lot of curricular overlap, which is good because it deepens learning for students. But it does give us an opportunity for this small group of students, 20 to 25 students usually, to compact that a little bit and move that acceleration process down to 8th grade, where they have 70 minutes or close to 70 minutes every day. So more time, so they can still go at a faster pace. It's compacted, which is appropriate for the acceleration that they need, but does give them a little bit more time to process information. So it was a good find, I believe, by our staff, a good solution that they brought forward to us. The only thing I will say is on the memo, I put the wrong year, that this begins in 22-23, not this year. That would be weird since we're in December, so I apologize for my typo on that. I make no bets in what I sign my checks with in January. But I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
I think it's nice. Very good change here. Any questions? Eric? Ann?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Jeannie?
I'm good.
See?
I would have said exactly what Stacy said. Just commend the team for, you just changed it, but like, look, if it's not working, if there's a better way, change it back, change it right away and don't wait. And this is fantastic.
Stacy?
Love that approach.
Good.
Our student reps probably don't care anymore.
I had a question.
Sure,
Yeah, go
please.
ahead.
I was just wondering, so how is this, like, I was kind of thinking back about how the acceleration worked when I was in the middle school. How is it different than what it was before?
Yeah, so it's kind of depends on your grade currently right now. So for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they would have had the opportunity to accelerate in 5th grade and then again in 7th grade. And I guess that would be true of our freshmen as well. The freshmen are the last group to have gone through that. Our current students have the opportunity to accelerate in 6th and 9th grade. So with the switch of the grade levels, that was a change that we made. But this finding pushes that back to now 6th and 8th grade. However, our current 8th graders will still have an opportunity to accelerate next year if they would have been in that identified group. So no group is lost in any of this and stuff. So yeah, it goes from 5th to 7th. Then it was 6th to 9th, and now it's going 6th to 8th. So yeah, sort of depends on how old you are at the time.
All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to need a motion to approve this change to the acceleration model.
I move to approve the change in acceleration model to be in 6th and 8th grade with the addition of a Math 8/1 course beginning in 22-23. Thank you.
Second.
All right. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great change. Next item is I put on the agenda just to open records request overview or review. We've been working on a lot of these that we really owe our community when they request some information. But it has been taking some time to get through all of this, so just wanted to get a report here for the board.
We were able to finish. I've been providing regular updates to the board in the notes for each meeting. We've had a fairly substantial number of records requests over probably the past 6 months, and those have now all been completed and satisfied. So Brian thought it was worthwhile just to have the opportunity to see if the board had any questions regarding those requests or the process. So that's why it was put on the agenda. So I'll be happy to take any, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Mike, I have a question. Is it possible to narrow the scope of some of these? Because this one was so large and so many man-hours went into it that it's obviously a burden on especially the administrative staff. Is there a way that we can reduce the scope or work with the people that are asking for the open records to be more specific as to what they're looking for?
Yeah, and I will say that there's been some working with some of the requesters, and there's been some good accommodations or some things that we've been able to work out to make things a little bit more efficient, as well as kind of just giving updates as we've been trying to get some of this out in pieces because it was definitely taking a lot of hours. So I shared with you the final release and the cover letter and those pieces.
Sorry.
John's watching YouTube over here. So, so, and I did include in that cover letter that we reserve the right to, ask for reduced scope in the future. That was the advice that we received from legal. That, in particular, a component of that, one that was took very substantial number of hours to complete, that it was very broad. The approach was to really try to focus on transparency and making sure we're ensuring that the public has the information that they want. But there is a balance there to your question, and so specificity is very helpful. It's helpful in two ways. It's helpful for us in terms of the number of hours put in, and it's helpful for the requester to get their information more quickly. So that is a piece that you're able to do within the law, but it's a little bit gray in terms of what the edges of that are. So with the experience of this, that's something I think we would nudge on a little bit to say, can we get this a little bit more dialed in? But again, there was some really good conversations with requesters where they worked with us to help us do that.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm looking for, is that it becomes more specific and that we can work with legal and with the people, with the public, asking for the records, so this does not become cumbersome anymore on the administrative team.
Yeah, and
that's my concern.
I think it's really about, if you get to the basis of what a records request is about, part of it is about trust, right? You're trying to build trust. So I think the more that you can work with members of our community who ask for records, build some trust and work with them and try to get, sometimes it's just a matter of a conversation. I think this is what you're looking for. Is this what you're looking for? Would you be comfortable with this? Because it gets a little bit more focused, and so we've had some good conversations on that.
Okay, and you feel more comfortable with it now that, with the dialogue that's gone back and forth?
Yeah, I think
that we could be more specific, that we can hone in on it more.
I can never predict what's going to be a request on the road, but I will say I've had good experiences, just picking up the phone and having conversations, and I think, this one took quite a while, and there was reasonable patience involved with getting that information, because it just took a long time. So, but I think, we just got to be willing to communicate and have those conversations.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with the dialogue back and forth then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody got a hand? Oh, yeah. Okay.
My question, Mike, is were there any district functions that were not able to be fulfilled because we had to direct resources to work on this task?
Well, I can say I'm behind in doing all kinds of things because of how much time I've spent on this. I spent every weekend in November in the office, at least for a little bit of time, trying to get caught up on these requests. There's things that I would certainly have done that I don't have done because of the amount of time that was put into this. I know Julie alone spent on the last one probably 50 hours just kind of pulling things together. And so, it's just one of those things. There's it's parts of it can be very tedious and long. The redaction review, you got to make sure you're not releasing something that's privileged, or that is maybe a health record, or that is a pupil record. So it just takes a long time. If they're very focused, to your question, and then we can get to the point pretty quickly and try to turn those around much faster. So like I said, the best case scenario is if the public wants records, if we have some specificity, then we can get them the information more quickly, and it doesn't take up the kind of resources that it can.
These two comments made me think that maybe we need to do, sorry to steal a Larry comment, a cycle of improvement here, because maybe we need to look at what the impact was, and to your point, if we get these in there, what could we do differently to lessen the load? So once this is what it cost us, how do we do it different so it doesn't impact us the same way? Maybe we need to take a look at that.
Yeah, and my question was really focused on what the non-financial costs were, because, you
Yeah.
know, every opportunity is a cost.
Right,
Every
if you're working on
opportunity
this, you're
costs.
not working on
That's right.
strategic plan or something like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that idea, the kind of combination there, give us a cycle improvement because we want to respond. you
Yes.
know, But we don't want to have the highest paid individual in the district doing all the work. So we got to see what it costs us and see how we get better at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Build efficiencies.
I have a question. Is there a way we can get like an estimated cost of it to do this, you know, all the open records for this year?
So an estimated cost in terms of what actual? Because
Well, yeah, so I
we've
mean-
provided costs. So here's just for kind of background. There's things you can charge for, you know, in terms of to the requester, and we've worked with individuals that have or groups that have asked for records. So you can charge for cost of copies. You can charge for the hours it takes to accumulate the records. You cannot charge for the hours it takes to review and redact the records. So these things are all kind of outlined in statute.
Yeah, and I don't mean charging for them.
Right,
I just
right.
mean,
But what
I
is
mean,
the actual cost?
Yeah, like what is the true cost of,
Yeah.
of all the open records?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I think
we
it's
could.
kind of like what Steve was getting to.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You said dollars, kind of, he said hours, so I think we're getting to the same thing.
Yeah.
We could provide you with kind of an estimate of just kind of
Not
taking
that
a.
we want to make more work
Yeah.
out of this.
So basically, he just finished and we're asking him to do something.
Yeah.
else.
No,
Yeah.
that's not the request.
It'll be estimates. How about
Yeah,
that? Estimates.
estimates.
I mean, we could generate an estimate. I think relatively easily. You know, the other piece is like when you charge, it's supposed to be at the lowest, the rate of pay for the person who could have done it, not necessarily who. So like anything that was done by me, it was charged at Julie's rate, because there's things that realistically she could do it. You know, there's things that Mike Murphy did, but it was billed at maybe another IT person's rate because he's the highest compensated IT person. So you do those things and that's what you're supposed to do in terms of the protocol. But then there's the actual, but that's not necessarily the right person or the best person to be doing those things. So I could try to pull together some kind of an estimate for you, just so you can kind of have a sense of that looking back over the last number of months.
Try to work it into one of the next meetings. If
This is, I'm kind of like with you, Brian, on this one, but I think, Mike, just to make, I'm sure I understand it, and what Eric's asking for too, because it was a little hard from the spreadsheet that you shared with us to kind of get at that in terms of the actual number of requests, but it's really the hours that were spent. And again, if you were doing it versus Julie copying it, it'd be nice to kind of know that so we have some context for how much was there. And I'm not saying that, because it's clearly the public's right to request all of these records and be able to get access to them, but it would be nice to know, I mean, your time, Danielle's time, and then whatever the hourly rate that you charged, and then what was the charges that we were able to do. But the other one, which is probably mind-boggling for me, is it's just like, how many pages did we end up providing them with? I mean, was this like, reams and reams of copies in terms of what's there? I'm just, so if there's a way to kind of get a sense of the magnitude of this, so we have something that, that we're doing our due diligence, I guess that's the way I would call it. I mean, due diligence in terms of where the Pewaukee School District funds or time and hours are being spent, so we have some accountability for that. And again, it's the public's right to be able to access it, so I'm not questioning that at all, but just so that we know, so we have some frame of reference in terms of what it costs us, so.
we'll get it on an agenda.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else there? Otherwise, I want to go to the highlight of the evening, the audit report. Should I turn it over to you, Steve?
Sure, I'll start that, and then I'm sure John will be very helpful in our conversation. So one of the things that John reminded us of earlier is that Baker Tilly works for the board in this capacity, right? So this is our audit. it's not district's audit, it's for us. I mean, we are the district, but they're working on our behalf. So please feel free as you spend more time with the materials, if you do, or you have spent some time with the materials and you have questions, to ask questions, to reach out to our team there. Paul Franz is our lead auditor and has been for this is his third cycle with us. So Paul's very much available to us to help with any questions or concerns that you might have. A summary of what Paul walked us through earlier this evening is that, in the notes that I took anyway, is that this was an unqualified audit. So that's what you want to have in any organization. You want an unqualified audit. It means that the auditors had no findings, that they had a difference of opinion from the management of the district about, so they wrote it up as it's often called a clean audit. The audit consisted of a review of all of the fund balances. That material's all included in the audit finding report that you were provided as part of your board package. So all of the fund balances reviewed, as well. The other thing that I think was we talked about significantly during the audit was because of the requirements of the federal government, there's what's done is called a single audit of all of the federal grants. As well, Wisconsin requires that if the federal audit is being done, the state audit has to be done, so all of the state grants were also reviewed. So not only was our ledger reviewed, our fund balances reviewed, but also the federal and state grant funding that we receive and the programs that we apply that to was also reviewed in detail to make sure that we were compliant with those requirements under those funding sources, and no findings were identified there either. So I guess that's my high-level summary. Is a testament to the quality of our team. We have a great finance organization in the district, business office organization in the district, and the fact that we have no findings and it was truly unqualified is a great sign of the diligence and the effectiveness of the controls that we have in the district.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
No, I think that Steve gave a great summary there of the presentation they did tonight. One thing, the unqualified was the language that they had to use up until 2 years ago. Now they call it an unmodified opinion.
Unmodified, thank you.
You old timer, you.
I'm old timer, yeah.
So that's where we're at moving forward. Talked about different fund balances, and we talked about a little bit more in the committee about the fund balance in our general fund, which is our operating reserve that's measured as of June 30th as the end of each fiscal year. Ours represents around 29%. And the question was asked is, how does that compare? And it really depends on what districts you're in and what your revenue flows look like. So in our district, a lot of our revenue for operations come from tax levy. We're a low aided district, or in the lowest 25% of aided districts in the state. So most of our revenues don't come in until January. So you need to survive on that fund balance, those operating reserves or short-term borrowing. So one definition of an appropriate fund balance could be enough that you don't need to short-term borrow to fund your operations until your revenues catch up. And if that was the measure, then we're a little bit short. Then we would add closer to 35% would be a target for the fund balance, depending if you measure it by those revenue streams. Right now, that's not as critical of an issue because the interest rates are so low on that borrowing that we do. But that's a consideration for the future. Other than that, I'm going to second Steve's comment about the team that prepares and goes through and is responsible for a lot of the accountability. We have some very qualified people who do a great job in the business office. One was a former auditor who knows what she wanted when she got into look at it in places, look at the funds in places, and really complies with what that is when she's the one preparing for the auditors to come in.
So one of the areas of questioning that I went into as we had this discussion, and it really was questioning of John and his team, is how do they stay up to date with these requirements? Because, it's like we talk about here with, how do we keep our educational processes vibrant and make sure that we're looking at data to make sure that we're delivering high-quality education. Well, John and his team also need to stay up to date with GASB regulations, changes in the requirements of the state and federal grants that we receive. So we spend time, and I was pushing on John to say, how do you do all of this? How do you make sure? What are your resources that you use? Who are the people you go to? How do you make sure that as you're applying these financial principles, that we're doing it the right way and we're compliant? And I felt really good about John's answers and the amount of time that he and his team spend researching and learning what the requirements are and what the procedures require us to do, as well as the resources that they use to enhance their own personal knowledge. So I thought that was very helpful. Thank you, John, for going through that with me.
I think we need a motion to show that we have accepted that audit report. So Steve, you want to?
I gotta find my thing now. Here we go. Maybe?
You just have to say I move
just-
to accept the audit
Yeah,
report.
that's it.
I move to accept the audit report.
I'll second you on that. Steve.
Thank you.
Made it through there. All right. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed? 7-0. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy.
I got your back.
All right.
for handling
Personnel
that complex
issues.
language.
It was really tough, I know.
Personnel issues. We have one resignation tonight to accept. Any comments, Mike?
I don't. You have the note from the staff member, but I would take any questions. Otherwise, ask your approval of the resignation of Ashley Roselle.
Is she a new hire?
She was new to us this year and
thought so.
and has decided that she wants to do something different. So
Motion?
I move to accept the resignation of Ashley Roselle.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. And we have a hire.
yeah, I'd recommend the hiring of Michael Lasard as a new alternative education teacher. A little bit of background: our alternative education program has grown fairly substantially over the last several years, leading to the need for an additional teacher. Michael has quite a bit of experience. I was able to be among the people that interviewed him as a finalist for this position, so I think he'll make great connections. Very much a passion for working with kind of at-risk alt-ed students. So I'd take any questions that you have and seek your approval of Michael Lasard.
Move to approve the hiring of Michael Lasard for the position.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
And there are no leaves.
Okay. Board goals and operations. We don't meet again until, I think, the 10th of January. There it is. And then the 17th, we'll have a learning session connected to our board and superintendent goals about board and superintendent relations. Then we bounce all the way to the 14th of February. And then the 24th, is that Bouldridge training?
February, yep.
February
Is that the
24th,
date for
sorry.
that? Yeah.
So, for those that I feel they need it, and then we'll have a meeting on the 28th. So, that's about as far as we need to look out at this point, unless there's something else that I might have missed. No? Okay. Item B, election candidate update report. Ann, Steve, and Eric are up for re-election. There's a whole.
And Ann?
Oh, sorry. Ann, Steve, and Eric, right? Did I say that? Okay.
Oh, I didn't hear you say. Maybe I just missed it.
It would be likely to miss something like that. The information about the deadlines are there. I don't know if we really need to discuss it. I think all the information is there for you. So unless somebody has something they want to ask or have a question about. Legislative update and advocacy discussion. I don't really have anything new going on. You guys?
John, anything? I know there's conversation about the ESSER funds and what's going to happen with that discretionary. I think that's the big piece
That's been going on a while now.
that has direct impact on us. So
Anybody else know of anything else?
No, other than, I mean, Mike, I wasn't able to make the SWSA meeting, was that
Tuesday, last week.
last Tuesday? Yeah. But I know that Dr. Underly and back to the legislative leadership in terms of how they're going to try to work out this discrepancy or however they want to deal with the additional funds that are out there. Hopefully they can come up with some kind of a reasonable compromise solution, if you will. Otherwise, I mean, it's just, we won't get access to those funds, so.
Yeah, and John's been involved in conversations with other business managers and in terms of what we, can communicate to legislators to really how they might frame this. So it gets, again, it sounds like a small piece in the grand scheme when they say, well, 95%'s been approved. But when we know that the funds were generally distributed through Title I, of which we have very low Title I districts such as ours, this is the most substantial, right? The most substantial part of that federal funding that would affect us. So we're really paying close attention to this, looking at, how we might reach out or messages we might send to legislators to try to help be a resource to our legislators in thinking through what might need to be done to satisfy the U.S. Department of Ed so that those could be released.
Thanks for that work.
Okay. Next item is the presentations that were slotted for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards in January, and then the national ones that are probably the first week in April. Larry asked to put this on here, I think, or?
No, it was just out there. I
Just
mean,
out there, so.
I mean, it just was a discussion, so.
We have one presentation at WASB. Which one is that? Is that
4K.
4K.
4K? Okay. And who's all slated for doing that?
Robin and myself and Steve.
Steve? Okay, fantastic. All
And
right.
what's the date of that?
20th of January?
Okay.
Is it 20th?
Yeah, 10:45.
Is that the Saturday or is that the
It's
Friday?
a Thursday.
Oh, Thursday.
Yeah,
Excellent.
10:45.
Excellent position.
On Thursday, the 20th.
Yeah, the timing is awesome.
Yeah, so.
Is,
on Friday.
so Steve
on
is
Friday presenting.
Steve the only one there? I just want to make sure Julie gets something on our calendars if that's,
Well, I'm available if you need me.
okay.
John is presenting on Friday.
Yeah, one of the president from WASBO, who was president before the year that I was, we've succeeded each other on the board. We both have a co-presentation going on Friday morning,
And something else will happen then too, right?
Thursday.
Yes, there'll be a little recognition of our business manager of the year there. on
And that's
that
the
Thursday.
21st, right?
The
The
John's
luncheon.
presentation
Yes.
is the 21st.
And then we have two presentations at the National, 4K and Insight, right? Okay. Anybody have any difficulties or objections to going to the NSBA?
I've been thinking about it a lot, I'll tell you that. I'm a
It's-
little conflicted about the whole thing, personally.
Well, the great thing about both these things is we not only get to provide what we learn, but we also take it as an opportunity to learn ourselves, so.
Right. And that's kind of my point. Like,
Yeah.
there'll be a lot fewer, I imagine there'll be a lot fewer districts participating in that session. So my assumption is there's gonna be, because lots of state organizations have withdrawn. So my assumption is a lot of those districts may not participate like they have in the past. So my concern is that we wouldn't get the value out of participating that we normally would expect. So I don't know that to be the case, which is why I'm just sort of conflicted at the moment about the whole situation, Brian.
I always find that there's 1 hour where I want to go to 4 of them, and another hour where I don't want to go to any of them, so maybe that'll help me.
But I think there's also, I mean, so the state associations are a separate group in terms of NSBA, but we belong to NSBA as a local school district, right?
Correct.
I mean, we pay fees.
Well, and that's, your renewal is coming up like in a week or two.
Right.
So, that's another reason why this is on there. I mean, you've obviously had concerns over what happened, and the board's passed a statement about that. WASB has withdrawn this year, so that was my understanding, is that so that you could have a discussion about how you wanted to proceed, whether it be the presentations, and also we were looking for some direction, so because Julie would be the one to process the renewal in terms of where this board is at with our membership as well. Because I think it's up for renewal next week or the week after.
And to some extent, we've already registered for the national conference as well.
I think we have, yeah.
I don't know that
Anybody
she's.
yet?
I don't know that she's registered anybody yet.
We've had the proposals accepted, but
Okay.
we can pull out of those if that's what you choose to do.
And
or-
I think that's where I'm kind of torn on it too. I mean, we have been historically, 2 or 3 presentations at the national conference all the time. And it's because we bring a certain level of leadership and a certain content that's not typically provided by other school districts in terms of when we can go to those presentations. So part of me that kind of, pay it forward, if you will, in terms of what we bring to this, that national conference. And again, not that I'm, with it, but I think the NSBA has quote unquote learned its lesson. I was reading some more things today. I mean, there were more school districts also dropped out. They potentially lost somewhere in the range of $1.1 million in terms of potential membership dues from some of the state organizations that were out there because they were large organizations. The one thing, which is again probably just the personal ethics on my part, I was disappointed in the extent of the leadership of NSBA, the acting interim director, and the lady who was the president of the organization, because it clearly became obvious that they did this in isolation. They did not even include their executive committee of their board. They didn't follow any governance kinds of things. And the new guy that's coming in made a specific statement about we need to reinforce the governance structure and how decisions are made. For those school board associations that chose to withdraw, so whether it was the lady from Minnesota, she chose to resign on her own, or the gentleman that I spoke to from, I think, Ohio, and talked with him about it, I'm quite frankly disappointed, because as a board, that's our job. I mean, we need to be there to kind of set the tone, set the direction, and make sure that the leadership of an organization understands what the expectations are. And in this case, it was clearly not something that the broader NSBA membership or board members of NSBA ever bought into. And I think that that's, it'd be like us sort of saying, oh, Mike and or Brian going off and doing something and not including the rest of us. That's my job, to step up and say, hey, Mike, Brian, that's a no-no. You can't do that. You have to include the full board when you're making any kind of decisions and sending out letters to the President of the United States regarding the role of the involvement of parents in school board meetings. So I felt that, I think to some extent they all failed us because they didn't necessarily follow their governance structure and or follow up on it. Because as they resign from the board, they have no future voice, right? I mean, they're off of it.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
But you did make a good point. You think they have learned their lesson?
Oh, I think they've learned their lesson big time. I mean,
They are the one voice we have at a federal level for
Yes.
school boards.
Right.
So, as I see it, we got 2 steps. We can't really go present unless we're a member of NSBA.
Right.
So, let's make that decision. Do we become a member of NSBA, and then we can make a decision about going, because there's some iffiness about how much weight, or how much value is gonna be there, given that people might have pulled out.
Yeah.
How much does it cost?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Well, technically, we
Right here.
cannot
It's
vote on that
not-
tonight
it's-
because it's not on the agenda.
No.
All we have is just a discussion of this topic tonight, so we would have to come back and have some other point if we need to renew or not renew.
Are you asking for the cost of the membership?
Yes. Is it something we join as individuals or as a
Oh,
board?
no, it's a
As a board?
As the district,
district.
as a board, you
Okay.
join.
Larry, am I hearing that you would perhaps advocate for staying involved so we can be a voice of reason?
That's my point. I mean, because if you don't have that opportunity, and again, in terms of when we sent the WASB and NSBA the letters, if you will, I mean, it was with the idea that we were not pleased with how they managed to run their organization, and I think that needs to get through. I mean, walking away from the situation says, hey, what did you do wrong? But I think the fact that we communicated it, we put it in the papers, I mean, it was a clearly, what do you call it? Admonishment of what they did, and I think that needed to be heard, and I believe that we sent that message out there, so.
Larry, do you think that WASB will rejoin the NSBA's now that they've got new leadership?
I don't know, I can't speak for that. I don't want to guess in terms of that group and the decisions that were made.
Well, I just think you talk to them more than like the rest of us do, I think.
Yeah,
Okay, so you make a point that we can't make a motion since it's not on the board for
We did
action.
it tonight.
But I appreciate the discussion.
Well, I think, you know, I mean,
I think,
it doesn't require specific action. You can certainly, again, take action. You're right, it's not although it is on the agenda for discussion.
and we don't usually have that on the agenda to approve or
It's
disapprove
been,
anyways.
it's
a-
been just something that's been annually done.
renew
This
it,
is a new
yeah.
scenario, and I apologize, Stacy, it's a great question. I should have had that for you. But I was trying to quick look it up and see if I could find what that number is. Julie would know, but I don't wanna, I'm sure she's probably not accessible right now, so.
So, and then we're kind of a holding pattern to see what impact these changes might have on the value of the convention in April.
So, yeah, I mean, I definitely see that they're two different issues.
right.
We could stay members because of what Larry's point is, that you want to stay part of an organization that has value and you want to make sure the ship is steered in the right direction. But we may not see value in going to the convention and presenting if we don't think it's going to be well attended and it's not worth the value of the expense of going to California to do that. So I could see very well going one way on one and another way on the other.
Okay. So, in general, we're okay with presenting, assuming that there is enough critical mass there to make it worth our while.
I think if so my opinion is, I don't think you quit the very first time somebody does you wrong, right? You don't walk away when somebody makes a mistake unless you learn that that's their culture, and then you need to reevaluate. But if this is just a one-time mistake, I think we owe it to the organization, and I think you made a great point, Brian, that this is the organization today. I hear a rumor that there may be some other organizations formed in the near future to rival this organization because other groups are disappointed. And I think we should evaluate that in the future. But for now, I think that this is our one voice, and I agree with you that we need to have a voice as a collective of school boards in this country. So I don't think the right move is to walk away from the organization. I just want to make sure that if we're going to make the investment of our time and our resources of the district, that the value that we've historically gotten out of going to this event is there.
Got it.
Because it's a significant amount of resources we could put otherwise to good use in the district to help the children.
Okay, got it.
So, two things, I guess, just would check to see if the board has had consensus so that we would move ahead. It sounds like consensus to move ahead with the renewal as we have annually done.
Yes.
And then what certainly can be done, because the conference isn't until end of March.
April 2nd.
Beginning of April,
yeah.
right? So there is some time there, so that could be, you direct if you would like it on an agenda for that, if you want to make a decision as a board regarding the presentations, and could be done in January.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we could get more information when we go to the convention in January from other members that are there as to what
At the
they're
state,
doing.
Sure.
As well, I think there are some districts that we've looked at in the past and said, these are really thought leader districts, and we should ask them if they're going to go.
Historically, did all of you or most of you go to the national?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and could that
That's
be
because we do the
cons-
drum circle there.
That's not why we all go, no.
Well, we did accomplish that once, right? So-
How are we gonna make it through one meeting without the drum circle?
But I think we really have a couple of decisions. So one is obviously the potential to renew the membership in NSBA. But then secondly, if we have not officially registered for the conference yet, we have that to sort out in terms of whether we go ahead with that and if we take the whole board or not the whole board. But I think the idea of doing the presentations, and I'm kind of like, it's part of our networking, it's part of our culture and our heritage of having been a recognized leader in the fact that we get selected out of thousands of school districts across the country to be able to do sometimes 2 or 3 presentations there speaks highly of the work that we do, and I think we bring value to other members that are there. And yes, we pick up on things from other school board members as well. But I think actually, Mike, are you going to be able to go or not go this year too? or-
I might have a conflict, yeah.
I think it'd be myself, Robin, and Adriana.
All right.
Good night, Khadijah. Good night, Masab.
Good night.
Hey, good night, guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right. I think we're good to move on.
Anybody else have something to say?
Okay. Comments from citizens?
Anybody out there?
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you, Becky. Thank you, Jackie, for tonight. I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.